Record. Okay, hi, I'm Deborah with DBW Designs, and I am going to do a short training video on how to access my files and how to do basic layers in Photoshop and Corel. Most programs are going to be very, very similar. You'll just need to figure out how the layers work in your program. So right now you are seeing my README file that comes with my designs. You're going to click on the link, and I have logged out of Dropbox. You do not have to have a Dropbox account for this to work. I logged out of my Dropbox, so it should look just the same as it will for anybody else. So when I click on the link, it's going to open up like this. And people tend to want to open the design and then right click and save, and that's how you end up with the wrong kind of file. So we're going to go back. What I want you to do is come up here in the upper right hand corner. If you see my mouse where it says download, click it and click direct download. If you have a Dropbox, of course you can automatically just move it over to your Dropbox, but most people don't want that. They want to download it to their computer so they have it. So if you click on direct download, if you look down in the corner here, you're going to see that it's downloading a zip file to my computer with all of the files in it. Once that's done, unzip the files, go to the folder where the files are located. For Photoshop is where we're going to start. So I'm going to open one of the files in Photoshop. So now we have our file. And it is transparent. That's what the dots behind it mean, that it's transparent. If you are seeing something that looks like this, then you have a JPEG file and something went wrong with your download. Either you did a save as in the wrong format or something went glitchy. So close it, it's not going to work for you. Go download it again and try again. Because that means that it's a single layer and it doesn't have the transparency. So the next thing you're going to do is open up whatever photograph you want to use. So I'm going to use this one for today. So I'm going to open it. I'm going to select all, edit, copy. And then I'm going to move back over to here. So these are just two different apps or tabs that I have open. And I'm going to Control V to paste, or I could edit paste up here. But now you see the picture is on top of the template. So I'm going to come way over to the right hand side. You can follow my mouse. And I'm just going to click and hold on the photograph and drag it underneath. That's it. It's under there. Now I want to resize it. So I have two choices. I can hit Control T. Maybe. Okay. First thing I'm going to do is go over to the left and click on my crosshairs up here. Okay, so that gets me in the right space here. I can click on Show Transform Controls at the top left, or I can hit Control T. Oh, I'm sorry. The problem here is that I don't have a layer selected. That's why it's not working. So look over to the right again at your layers bar and click on the photograph. That's the layer that we want to work on. Now Control T one more time. There we go. And you get your box. And I'm just going to resize it. Now, if I simply grab it and drag it, it's going to stay uniform size and shape, which is what I want, because I don't want to mess up the aspect ratio of the picture. If I were to hold down Shift and drag it to make it fit, it's going to make it way too wide. It's going to distort it. So Control Z, undo that. And I'm going to make sure that it's not changing the aspect of the photograph. So, and in this case, I'm going to go ahead and do her and her dog. And I can resize it as little as I want. I'm actually going to go a little bigger in this one so that I can show you how to get rid of excess. So let's just say we wanted to use just her. We wanted to zoom in on her face. But we've got this excess that's showing through the transparency that we don't want. Really easy at that point. You're going to go to the left-hand side, click on the eraser tool, come up to the top, and choose your shape brush, which typically, I mean, any size or shape will work. Make it as big or as little as you want. I'm assuming that you know some basics here if you're using Photoshop, but use a standard brush or eraser. And then I'm still selected on the photograph layer, and I'm going to erase what I don't want to show, what's behind here. And you see this hard edge on this side? That's because the photograph is showing through the soft edge on the design. So I'm going to erase over there too. And that's that. Now I have her showing through. I want to add text on top. I'm going to go back over to the left and I'm going to click on the text tool. Now I want to be on top layer. So back over to the right and click on the top layer, the clouds. Put your cursor and type. And go back up to your crosshairs, grab it, move it where you want it. You can Control T and drag it to make it bigger, check mark, or you can go to your character tab. Now I always have my layers, my characters, and my styles are my 3 tabs that I have open. You can open others by clicking on the Windows tab at the top and choose any of these will open a new history tab. I don't use that very often, so for me, these are the 3 that I always want open. If I need another one, I'll open it and then close it when I'm done. So I'm going to click on my character tab and choose my font. I'm sure you all have figured out by now I'm a big fan of this Chopin one. I can choose my size that way, and then I can click and drag it. I can change the color by clicking on my little color swatch, and I can use my eyedropper. If you see I'm hovering over the picture, I can grab some color out of the picture. I can grab maybe that blue right out of her eyes, or that red out of her lipstick. I'm gonna grab the blue out of the background. But it kind of fades in. You can't see it real good, right? And so I'm going to click on styles, and I have all these different styles that I've saved. You can download them from the internet. You can make your own. So these are some presets, but let's say I want to make my own. I'm going to right click on it, on the layer. So I'm looking at the layer, right click, go to blending options, and it opens your blending, your layer styles. The simplest thing to do is add a stroke. It's defaulted to the inside. Typically, I find it works better on the outside. The inside is going to make your font skinnier. And typically, we want it to be bolder. So outside for me works better. It's defaulted to black right now. I think white is going to be better in this case. So I'm going to change it to white, and I'm going to play with the size. And the bigger I go, I can go small. And let's say I'm not loving that color. I can also just change the color right here by doing a color overlay. And I can go with a nice bright blue, or I can change my mind and go back to the red. Brings out her lipstick. And go with the white. So there's all kinds of different, I can overlay it with a gradient instead of the color. From the gradients. Now I'm in 2020, which has got some cool new features in it. You may be using an older version. If you have the option to upgrade to 2020, I'm enjoying it. But here are some, like there's a nice, actually I like that one. That's a nice blue one I had set up previously. And click OK, and there's your style. And you're ready to print at this point if you're done. If that's all you wanted to add to it, et cetera, you can print from here. You can save as. If you save this as a JPEG, it's going to add a white layer behind it and flatten it, which is probably fine. You're going to print on white paper, you're probably fine. But if you want to maintain the transparency for other optional changes, save it as a PNG or a Photoshop file, which is a .psd. And that will allow you to save this transparency and the layers, which is the important part, that you can modify individual layers. So let's say I put a lot of time into the text on this, but I'm not loving this picture. So I want to save it and come back to it later with a different picture. I can hit File, Save As, and it defaults to a Photoshop file, a .psd. Save, and then when I open it next time, I can simply change it and put in a new picture. For the sake of simplicity, I'm going to stop there on this one, and I'm going to pop open Corel. Prerequisite here, I am learning Corel. I am not really good in Corel, but I have figured out the basics of the layers. So I'm going to open my base, which I'm assuming you know how to do that. We're going to import. Okay, so we'll import the photograph that we want to use. Let's say we want to use this one. Okay, so that's my photograph, and then I'm going to import the design that I want to use. Now, here's another thing. So let's say I'm working on an 8x12 tile, and this particular design, I didn't provide you with an 8x12 design. I gave you an 8x10. If you want to grab it and drag it and stretch it, in this particular design, as long as all you're stretching is the template itself, it's not hurting anything. It's clouds, it's sky, it's a couple of doves that may look a little bit more elongated than normal, but it's really not hurting anything, and it's fine to do it. What you don't want to do is, after you've attached the picture to it, then drag it, because then you're going to distort the person's face, and that's the problem that you don't want to do. So, all right, in this case, because I did the photograph first, she's already on the bottom. But the same thing happens if I click over on the right-hand side and I click on Objects, which is what layers are called in Corel. I can click on her and drag her up and put her on top, or drag her and put her underneath, which is where she belongs. And then I want to, I don't know why I'm getting these funky arrows. Okay, there we go. I don't know what was wrong there, but so now I've got my squares, same thing. I can resize her. I can drag so she's centered. And there. So, okay. Now, in this instance, let's see if I can figure this out in Corel. I know how to do it in Photoshop. You see how it kind of cuts off at the top and there's a little bit of extra cut off there. It doesn't quite match. Or you can see the transparency through because the picture is too small. So in that case, what I would do, let's see if I can figure this out. I want to, add a layer. Let's see here. Oh, it's called an object. Insert object. Nope. Okay. I'll have to look up how to do that in Corel, but let's go back to Photoshop for a minute. And let's assume that that was the problem I was having in here. I told you I'm still learning Corel. I don't know how to do that yet. I only checked out the basics here. Okay, so I'm going to come down here to the bottom and create a new layer, or I can come up to the layer menu and click on new. And I've got a new layer. I want to come over to my color swatches, and I want to grab some of this color out of here and my paint bucket and paint that layer. Now it's on top. I want to drag it down underneath the photograph. And I'm going to Control T because I have the faded edges on this one. So I want to make it smaller. I don't want it to show outside, but for the sake of showing you what I'm doing here, I'm going to make her picture smaller on purpose so that you can kind of see what I mean. So there's that edge showing right there. And I want this background, there, come on, to show See, without it, you can see the transparency. So I want this background to kind of fill it in. Now, in this case, it's a nice brown picture, so it's not looking right. So I can potentially grab some of the brown out of her picture and paint that background. And it just fills it in so that it matches a little. I can do the same thing I did before with the eraser tool and erase my excess on that background piece and just keep the parts that I want. Go back to her picture, get rid of this little bit. And I've moved her picture and I've added just a little bit of whatever. Typically adding a little bit of this blue works really well to make the photograph blend in. I'm sure that there's a way to do that over here in Corel Draw, but I don't know what it is. I guess actually, I wonder if I can do paint bucket, and I want to grab some blue, and I'm on her picture. Yeah, I need to work on that. All right. So anyway, that's the basics. I am going to upload this so that it will be available. And thank you. And I am going to